How you doing, guys? Back for another beer review. This time it's kind of a special one. It's one that's sort of been on my bucket list, so to speak, for a while. Sent to me by AverageJoe via the Albino Rhino. AverageJoe met up with the Rhino, said, here, send this by mail to Lee. More convenient that way. So I finally get to try this. Guinness for an Extra Stout. I think most people are aware that there's just multitude of Guinnesses. There's just so many different kinds of Guinnesses. There's all kinds of tons of variation that never leave, like Ireland or the UK or whatever, and they only last so long and then they're gone. This is sort of the one that you see pop up in more like tropical countries, more countries near the equator, stuff like that. It's basically an Imperial Stout. It's apparently the Guinness with the most flavor, the most complexity, the most body, everything. You know, it's not Guinness draft, let's put it that way. So let's see what it says on here anyway. 7.5% alcohol by volume, first of all, so there you go. Most Guinness is, what, 4.2? 4.2, I think, is what the standard Guinness usually is. For an Extra Stout is brewed with generous hops, roasted barley, bittersweet balance, developed for global export from Ireland. There you go. Addition of extra hops ensured the stout would arrive in perfect condition. Today enjoyed millions around the world. I think it was only, what, maybe 2 years ago now that it finally showed up in the US, like nationwide, or close to that anyway. They made a big push for it anyway, so trying to capitalize on that craft brew market, I guess. So we're going to open it up and see what we think. Again, big thanks to AverageJoe and the Albino Rhino for getting this to me. This is one I've wanted to try for a while. Whew, bubbling. Alright. Should be enough for now. Two-finger head. Head looks pretty much like Guinness out of just regular Guinness, not widget Guinness, of course, not the nitro Guinness, but like a regular Guinness you can get out of bottles and stuff that hasn't been given the widget treatment. Guinness Extra Stout, for example, different variations you can get, sort of looks like that. Not seeing much in the way of highlights. Pretty much looks pitch black. Probably a deep ruby red like regular Guinness. That head is basically brown. So go right to the aroma. Oh. Noticeably different right off the bat. Like, very noticeably different. Very sweet. It's still got that element of that sour sort of tang that like you get out of Guinness draft and stuff like that, although it's very muted in Guinness draft. I hear you're getting this like sweet, almost berry-like floral fragrance. Candy-ish almost. Not getting a lot of the roasted qualities or anything like that you'd expect from a stout. It's much more on the fruity side, and you know, there's Imperial Stouts out there that are more fruity like that. I'm getting like cherry. Whew. It's weird. It's a hard one to dig into. Cherry, maybe some vanilla. And then there's this sweet candy undertone through the whole thing. Trying trying to place what kind of candies they are, but very sweet. It doesn't smell like a stout. It doesn't even really smell like any other Imperial Stout I've had. I mean, it's got components to it that you'll find in other Imperial Stouts, but it's usually much more minor in those. Like usually an Imperial Stout, you will get sweet notes like this, but you'll get the roastiness, you get the hops, you know, what have you. It smells good though. It smells very good. It smells almost like a wheat beer in a way. So go right to the taste. Cheers, guys. Very sweet up front. Again, more of like a dark cherry. The sweetness like goes very medicinal, like cough syrup or something along those lines. And then you get the roastiness, you get the stout qualities in the actual taste. You got this big sort of roastiness coming up in the background. Yeah, very cough drop like in the front, like got this sort of candy sweetness, sort of cough drop, medicinal. Moves over to this roastiness. I'm starting to get a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of coffee, mostly coffee out of it. Very dry. And then you get a little bit of that more sweetness comes back up and rests on the tongue in the finish. I'll be with you in a minute there, sweetie. Don't worry. We're still playing ball. Yes, we are. Man, that's very good. Very different from the standard Guinnesses. Like, there are little bits and little hints of the Guinness you're familiar with in there. But, man, there's definitely different components to this one. Those sweetness, that medicinal note. It's very nice. It's very, very nice. As an Imperial Stout, honestly, I wouldn't rank it as one of the best I've ever had. I mean, it's very good, but it's very different. Very, very different, and not in a necessarily a great way. Like, it's very odd for an Imperial Stout. But I'm not getting any alcohol. The 7.5%, not there. Drink's very smooth. The mouthfeel is... I say it's basically medium-bodied, lower medium. It's definitely not as complex as the Imperial Stouts you get all over the place these days. It just isn't. And you know, honestly, Guinness is a big macro company. I'm not necessarily expecting the world. I'm not expecting a real world beater of a Imperial Stout. And of course, I'm very spoiled on all the Imperial Stouts I've been having. What's the matter, you? Oh, she put it up on the deck. She must really want me to throw it. Excuse me, ladies and germs. There we go. But yeah, it's still, I dare say it's better than anything Budweiser could come up with if they tried to make an Imperial Stout, you know. It's still a really good beer. You know, there are notes of it that remind me sort of like of McEwen's Scotch Ale, sort of, to some degree. It's not bad. It's not bad. It is very, like, kind of candy, medicinal, cough droppy. This seems to be the dominant thing. The stout qualities are very much in the background. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. There's nothing offensive about it. It's not horrible. It doesn't taste bad. It's just not necessarily what I'm looking for in Imperial Stout. It doesn't really fit that style all that well, as far as I understand it anyway. but it's still a really good beer. It's still definitely worth trying. And again, big thanks to AverageJoe for sending this to me, and big thanks to the Albino Rhino for getting it the second half of the way. So, Guinness, for an Extra Stout, 3.5 out of 5. Very good beer. Very, very good beer.